Marvel's What If is a new anthology series from Marvel Studios. It's their first animated project ever. It's 9 episodes long. It was first supposed to be a 10-episode season, but 1 episode has recently been scrapped, unfortunately. But hey, for the coming 9 weeks, we're going to see an isolated Marvel adventure, free from canon. Every week we're going to play around in this sandbox that we also call the multiverse. Let's stop and discuss this first episode. Hi fellow Disney Plus watchers, this is Thoughts After a Disney Plus Watch, where we review everything new Disney Plus coming out, and I'm glad you're watching. This is the channel that's specifically about movies, shows, and all that's Disney Plus original stuff. What I'm doing traditionally is I talk about the first episode of a show in a non-spoiler way. It's just about my first impressions and everything that stood out to me. And from next weekend on, I'll do my reviews in spoilers, so be sure to note that there are no spoilers in this video. The animation. It's right from a comic book in places, but can also feel pretty weird at times. It's a blend of 2D drawing style and 3D models. Whenever the action set pieces are going on, it all looks beautiful, but during talking scenes, it was some getting used to. When the show really focuses in on hand-drawn styled expression, but still has everything in 3D modeling, it brought me back to Star Wars Resistance, which is a show not as terrible as people say in my opinion, but the animation style is one of the many things that weirds me out about that show. And speaking of What If, it doesn't know if it's 2D animation or 3D, so it's trying to have a bit of both, and that is sometimes a bit off-putting, I think. The story is actually way more different than I anticipated, and that is both a good thing and a bit of its weakness. Let me explain. It's a good thing because we're not just seeing the movie Captain America the First Avenger play out on screen, but only Cap Steve swapped with Cap Carter. No, there's more to it. Change this little detail and it has a ripple effect, like it means Steve is still in his old skinny body, but that doesn't mean Steve just steps back into the background and gives up. He still wants to play his role. He's a pretty proactive character in the episode and he kind of shares the stage with Peggy. So I'm happy to say about this first episode that there's more care put into it than what would some scenes look like, or wouldn't it be cool if that guy went with that guy, or Peggy put on the costume. No, there's more to it than just these little things. The story of this episode, the later we are in the story, all the more different the events will become, just like a branching timeline that starts familiar and then goes off wherever the bow leads it to. But this is exactly the weakness of the show too, or at least this episode, because this episode, I'm sad to report, is only really enjoyable for the people who have seen Captain America the First Avenger, or hell, I think you even have to have the movie in fresh memory. Like I said, after a while the events are becoming very different, but the foundation and the setting of the story are of course really familiar. And this episode did have a really fast pace to it, and isn't at all afraid to leave everyone behind who can't really remember what happened in the Phase 1 Marvel movie. It's sad to say that this episode is, in my eyes, only enjoyable for such a small audience, die-hard Marvel fans who catch on immediately. Because there are a lot of secondary characters from Captain America the First Avenger who are starring in this episode, and if you can't remember them, you're like, why do we need all of these characters in this already extremely crowded episode? I rewatched Captain America the First Avenger like 1 month ago, something like that, and I already had a hard time following everything, and I'm sure I missed some important details on my first watch because it's such a breakneck speed. There are some really sweet scenes going on between Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter, and they play around with something between them that has been going on for multiple movies in the MCU, and the writers use that in a clever way, in a fresh way. It's even brought up during battle, so there was something of an emotional core to this episode, but also that relied completely on your knowledge of the first Captain America feature film. Overall, this episode left me pretty confused. I wonder how big the following of this series is going to be. It's not for newcomers, and also not for casual Marvel fans who watch most of the movies once and move on. You need to be pretty into the MCU for it and have everything in fresh memory to kind of follow what's being set up. But it's also not directly for the people who want to see what if Peggy Carter was Captain America during all the events of Captain America the First Avenger, because the episode gets pretty different at the second half, so it's also not for the fans expecting that. So who is this for? I think for a very small group of people. I would say as an MCU experiment for fans, it's kinda cool. I found some enjoyment out of it. The action set pieces were really good, for example, and the relationship between Peggy and Steve really worked for me. But as an isolated piece of television, I think it's pretty bad, because it doesn't care to give new viewers context and it rushes through plot beats like it's the night before the big exam. It's a bummer. I'm thinking about wrapping this up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm curious, what did you think of this first episode? Be sure to let me know in the comment section. Don't forget, if you enjoy the idea of discussing Disney Disney Plus content with us. That red button looks familiar, right? And if you're interested in thoughts on previous episodes, it's all in the description, or you can browse the channel page. Did you like this video? Then be sure to consider giving that a click. Thanks. I'll be back this Friday with the season finale of The Bad Batch and my thoughts on Turner and Hooch, Monsters at Work, and the new Goofy shorts. You can find it all on my channel. For now, have a wonderful day and see ya.